BetStamp wants to ensure you've maximized your ROI. Line shopping for the best odds matters, and that is why any profitable sports bettor needs to be using multiple sports books. Thankfully, there has never been a better time to get signed up, and they are here to connect you with the best promotions industry-wide. Using their link, signupexpert.com-TAS, you can get access to all the sportsbooks in your region, along with a review of each platform and its unique features. Most importantly, this page automatically connects you to the top promotions at each book, allowing you to start line shopping with an enhanced.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Drew with High Fight IQ, and you are now watching the MMA Conspiracy Hour with my boys Todd Adkins and Miguel Iturrate. Miguel has been the matchmaker for over 200 shows worldwide and has worked with Hook and Shoot, Euphoria, Bodog, and ADCC. Make sure you subscribe to the Todd Atkins Show on YouTube. You can also find Miguel on his YouTube channel at MMA Collector 74. Don't forget to subscribe to High Fight IQ on all social media platforms. The House Call Sports on YouTube, the Fight Pit on YouTube. Now let's talk some fights, baby. Let's go.
All right, this is Todd Atkins, and I'm back with Miguel Iturrate, and we're going to do another, this will be like a boxing conspiracy hour, even though the show's called MMA Conspiracy Hour. We're going to be covering the Haney versus Garcia fight, where there was a little conspiracies here and there. And as always, before we start, I want to thank our sponsors, the Fight and Bet Stamp. And, Miguel, I kind of want to let you give kind of your opening thoughts you always do about the fight and what happened.
Well, Garcia is a guy that has a lot of promise. He has a lot of charisma. I give him credit for going into the Gervonta Davis fight earlier, before this fight. It was two guys with undefeated records fighting each other, and that was a very legitimate fight, and he lost. And he lost it in you have to give Gervonta Davis a ton of credit. Gervonta Davis took him out with Garcia's signature punch. So, you also consider the fact that was a good payday for Garcia and stuff. And since then, it appears that Garcia's been trying to tell the story that he's gone a little bit off the hinges. He's always been a very focused boxer. He's got huge social media presence and stuff, but it's always been boxing oriented and boxing first kind of stuff. And he used that social media presence and put out a message on his social media that really had a lot of people, including myself, confused or interested or wondering what was going on with Garcia. And I'm sure Devin Haney's camp, was also thinking the same thing, that this guy is having problems. Maybe he's not handling the payday correctly. Maybe he's out partying and stuff like that. To me, the thing that bears watching more than any of the other stories was his appearance on Alex Jones, which obviously happened before the fight. Alex Jones, is a man after our own heart in terms of, he's the big conspiracy theory podcaster. He's been sued over it, and he's probably been right and probably been wrong on multiple occasions. I'm not a huge follower of him, but he's certainly hard to ignore. And, his voice is heard on a lot of stuff. And he's not a guy, say what you want about him, he's not a guy that works off a script. And I wonder if Ryan Garcia's appearance on Alex Jones was scripted, because I watched it and I said to myself, oh my God, there's something really wrong with Ryan Garcia. He talked about being kidnapped and about being taken to the Bohemian Grove where, and that's right up Alex Jones's alley. Alex Jones has multiple podcasts where he said he snuck into Bohemian Grove and witnessed the ceremonies that go on there, which, involve, rituals and very elite government and, rich people and elite people doing very strange things. That's about as much detail as I want to go into because I'm not familiar with all the details and things. But Alex Jones is a guy that part of his fame comes from that he accessed Bohemian Grove and they made a film that's grainy or whatever, but that he has some proof that there actually is some legitimacy that something weird goes on there. So all of a sudden, Ryan Garcia is being kidnapped and he's in Bohemian Grove and they're trying to brainwash him to make him forget what he went through. And he said he didn't forget. And it was a very, very odd podcast. And if they planned it, my hat's off to him. And if he went on there and made all that stuff up and kind of used Alex Jones's fame to put out his story and didn't tell Alex he was in on it, then that goes, to show you the level that Ryan Garcia was willing to go to put out a certain story before this fight, maybe to get Haney off of the trail. Haney's a guy that he's been brought along carefully. We have talked in the past about how a lot of his earlier career was in Mexico, fighting in bars against, questionable competition. And that's where a lot of his knockouts are. Since he's graduated to better competition, obviously he doesn't have the knockout power that he showed in the early days kind of thing. So he was brought along, and boxing camps, especially at the highest level, usually come with a good bit of circle the wagons paranoia. But the Haney camp had to be watching all the antics that Garcia and all the messages that Garcia was putting out, and had to be thinking, we got this guy. This guy is not coming to be able to come in 100%. There's just no way he's not 100%. So I think Garcia did a masterful job. And since then, it's come out that he did use the social media to put out this story and throw the scent off. And I wonder if we'll ever see it again. But that the high-level boxers in the world will go to any lengths to throw off their opponent or to win a fight, to play the mind game as well as the physical game. We talk about it with other fights many times about how this is much more of a mind game than it is a physical game. You got to be on top of your physical, conditioning and everything like that to even do it. But at the end of the day, a lot of these things are decided before the fights by the mind and the mind game, the state of the mind. And Garcia put out a message that his mind wasn't there. And I think that may have made Haney think that he was going to be in for an easier time. Meanwhile, probably behind the scenes, Garcia, being a top-level pro, probably enjoyed a real solid training camp while putting out this false message. There's more messaging and stuff that he got advice from Floyd Mayweather that he should miss weight. And, there are many reasons why that could happen. But, at the end of the day, the icing on the cake, the last message Haney sees before the fight is the weigh-ins, and Garcia shows up, still not putting the whole act down. So he comes in, doesn't make the weight. And you got to think he didn't have a great training camp. He wasn't ready to make it. He doesn't want to make it. He's suffering. And, he's not going to win the belt. So he's going to give up the belt. And we got this. And it looks like Garcia may have sacrificed those last 3 pounds. I think in my opinion, it looks like he could have made the weight. That he was capable of doing it and chose not to because he thought that the Haney camp would misread that fact and it would add to their overconfidence or their feeling that they were not going in against an opponent that was 100%. And obviously they got a guy who was pretty damn close to 100%. So very interesting. Very interesting. We saw something, it even caught me by surprise. Like I said, Alex Jones isn't known for having boxed, he's not like, well, we're talking conspiracies, and again, very controversial stuff. He believes some mass shootings were faked and stuff like that. I don't want to get into that, but it's always serious business like that. It's not like every once in a while he's like, yeah, we're going to have a boxer on and just talk fights, and so Garcia had to make up the Bohemian Rhapsody, the Bohemian Grove story to get Alex Jones's attention and go on there And that gets the message out. He went on Alex Jones to talk about some crazy stuff when he should be training. So, yeah, I think he did a masterful job of putting out a message. And I think we may never see that again because now people are aware that it's possible that what you see on social media is constructive for a story, because Garcia showed us a new level.
Now, I want to talk about the weight miss, and I'm going to discuss two things. So I'll discuss the first thing. And that is, if it's true that Floyd instructed him to miss weight and that Garcia's put this out, which
I would say
I think he did. I've seen, a lot of videos on this already. What responsibility does boxing have if a fighter says after the fact that he missed the weight on purpose?
Yeah, I think the crime here is, or the reason it should get scrutinized a little bit is because of the admission. Because I think that people do it all the time for one reason or another in MMA as well, for whatever their reasons are. I'm suffering from the weight cut. I'm bigger than this guy. I want to send a message, or I don't want to do the last 3 pounds because I've been suffering lately on the weight cut. Whatever the reason is, people have been missing weight on purpose for a long time. The fact is now to come out and say, yeah, I did that on purpose, maybe a boxing commission has something to do with it. There may not be much that they can do. At the end of the day, what Garcia was advised to do is to drop the possibility that he would win a very coveted world title with the fight. So he had to weigh his options and think, yeah, my benefits of winning the fight are going to be exceeding the benefits of also winning the fight and winding up with the world championship. Maybe he was at the point where he's going to move up in weight and he's been suffering for the weight cut and doesn't want to do it. But I don't think that was the case. I think this was the icing on the cake, last message to the Haney camp, the day before the fight. He didn't even make weight. He's still not checked into this fight. That's what it makes it seem like. And I think that was a message that he wanted to get out. That was the whole purpose of the last, 6 to 8 weeks of craziness on social media. You saw a lot of people were out there saying Ryan Garcia's gone crazy. So he definitely put the message out consistently, got the job done in that respect. And then after the fight was like, yeah, I'm done with the crazy stuff. It was for this. It was to build the fight, to hype the fight. And at the end of the day, when he went on Alex Jones, maybe there are a few Alex Jones fans that aren't huge boxing fans that tuned into this fight and gave him a little extra bump on the pay-per-view and on the checks and stuff because he drew crossover attention. So, there's a whole lot of different reasons why Garcia could benefit from not making the weight. You have to consider that in his eyes, whatever those reasons were, they trumped beating Haney and winning the world championship. So, yeah, boxing should be butthurt in that, there was this conspiracy to not make the weight and people are advising each other not to follow the rules and things. And also that their world championship is worth less than whatever benefits that he's going to get now.
Alex Jones might be a little upset now because it's going to be, this guy made this all up and came on my show,
Yeah, that's why I think it is a very interesting question that if Alex Jones said, okay, let's do it, I'll do it. Alex Jones I've seen him, I think he's done, obviously, Joe Rogan's podcast. I've also seen him be friendly with another comedian named Doug Stanhope, who's a lot smaller than Joe Rogan, and a lot funnier, actually, if you consider it, in my book anyway. So he does have a lighter side. But, even when he was on the Stanhope, and I think there's a big clip of him appearing and introducing Stanhope at one of his acts where he goes crazy and he's yelling at people in the audience and things like that. He may have had a couple of drinks and things. Alex Jones is never off character. He's always got his message and stuff like that, but he does have a lighter side. So maybe if he was approached by Ryan Garcia, and they say, look, I want to come on your podcast. This is what we're going to say. We're going to talk about Bohemian Grove, like I got kidnapped and stuff. Will you do it with me? It's possible that Jones would say, sure, let's do it, because he's got a cool streak, but it's definitely not it was unpredictable. It's definitely not in his character. It's not something he's done before. You know?
Yeah, and I
Because usually,
certainly I don't think Alex would have told him. And after we're done, tell everyone you made it up.
yeah,
You know?
he may not have thought that all the way through. You're going to come on pre-fight. You're going to send the message. What happens afterwards? You may not have thought all the way through. Does Alex Jones look bad? No, not really. Maybe he got, maybe Ryan was acting and Alex, was kind of believing it. And, I don't think Alex Jones was damaged that much, but he might feel a little used if he wasn't in on the joke or in on the story and stuff like that, and that could prevent him, from using boxers or having boxers. It's like I said, it was already out of character. Like when I saw Ryan Jones on Ryan Garcia. I'm sorry, Ryan. I'm mixing up their names. I called him Alex Garcia. I've called him Ryan Jones now. So, but when I saw Ryan Garcia on the Alex Jones podcast, that was a must click. And Alex benefited from that, and Ryan benefited from that. But it just seemed like a pair that you would not normally see together. So maybe Alex was okay with it. Yeah, you can come on and do what you want. And he didn't think through that he might, people say, well, what was Alex Jones doing? Was he asleep and he didn't realize it or whatever? Yeah, he played along. I don't think Alex looks bad, but he may not like it because, some people may question his credibility or whatever. But yeah, I think he'll overcome that. And he's overcome a lot to be back on social media and stuff like that. So I don't think that this is going to be the stroke that kills him.
That's true.
You know what I mean? But yeah, if Ryan used them, then it's something that a lot of people are going to have antennas up. It's going to be hard for Ryan to duplicate anything like this. How low do you go? You know what I mean? What if before his next big fight, his social media is all like about the death of a parent or something like that, and then that turns out to be a hoax? He now has enough money, he could fly his mother to Thailand and be like, oh, she was kidnapped by aliens, or whatever story he wants to give, and people are going to be like, oh, he's not going to be ready for the fight. How do you get? It's almost an unduplicatable thing, or very hard to duplicate. Many years from now, somebody else could try it, and maybe the world won't be so weary or looking for it. But I think Garcia took the trick that was up his sleeve and used it. And I think it was the right time in his career to use it, because after the Gervonta Davis loss, he was, like I said, he's a kid with charisma. He's a great boxer. The loss to Davis is looking like an even greater boxer, but they may wind up meeting again, and he should want that in the future. He needs to catch up.
Let me ask you this.
The bottom line, really quick, he really couldn't afford to lose to Haney as well and go 0-2. So he put in a lot of stake, I think, to win this fight. And I think that's what you saw here. My hat's off to him. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
No, I wanted to get to kind of my second thing, which was fighters missing weight, but not really. It benefits them. I know losing $1 million something isn't great, but he probably made a good amount on the fight. And his next fight, he'll make twice as much as he would have had he lost. So is he really punished for missing weight? I don't think so.
Yeah, no, it's a hard, again, if he was fined 20 or 30% of his purse, I heard he lost $1.5 million. So he took home 4.5. That's not even that painful. $1 million. I lost $1.5 million. Yeah, but you have 4.5. If it's a 25% fine or whatever. So the numbers even make sense at some point, where it becomes a decent investment to lose that money, because you'll get it back in a future fight, or you'll get it back because of the credibility of the win, and because you're a little bit. Your percentage of chances of winning may go up a little bit because you've pulled one over on your opponent. Your opponent has reason to think or doubt in you and your training camp, and whether you're 100% or not.
And this is something we talked about in MMA too. Like guys miss weight, and if they win, it really doesn't hurt them because they don't say, "Oh, you're back down in the rankings now."
You
They
know,
move up.
if it were a real sport
Yeah.
with real rankings, and boxing's not either. There's
Right.
15 different belts and 15 different promotions, and some guys are not rated over here because they don't pay for the sanctioning body to rate them, and this, that, or the other stuff. So boxing is as corrupt as MMA in terms of, in MMA that your ranking is based on whether UFC thinks you can make money and stuff like that. But in a real sport, you have the guy ranked right behind them, ready for the fight and to step in. And if somebody doesn't make weight, they get canceled and replaced. And if that is prepared very, very ahead in advance, the fighter should be able to have a training camp that adapts to it, so it's not a huge surprise and that excuse gets limited or taken away. Oh, they changed my opponent the last minute, that's why I lost. Well, you knew about it 6 weeks ago, because if your guy doesn't make weight, we're not going to fool around with taking a percentage of the purse. We're not going to do that. We're going to cancel the fight for the guy who didn't make weight, and you're going to fight anyway. Or if you don't want to fight that day, this becomes a little touchy because the promoters are there, and they sold tickets, and fans are there, and it's like, I can't make it next week and things like that. But you fight the next week or the next evening or however you do it. But you cancel the fight for the guy who doesn't make weight, and the other guy still fights. There are ways you'd have to really plan it and orchestrate it, but there are enough athletes out there, and the guy who's sitting there watching the fight, he's going to get a little money, so he's prepared to do it. And if he steps in, he's getting a payday that's, pay grade up, because if, at least in the championship matches, the UFC already does this. They have a backup.
Right, and
you've
it
heard on
really
multiple
hurts.
occasions. I think recently Colby Covington was a backup for one of the fights.
Right.
It's kind of like a payback for all his shenanigans and shit. You get a payday for being the backup. And the threat is, if you don't make weight, you don't fight. It's not like the guy's he's okay with it. Your opponent's okay with it. You're going to give him 20% of your money. Once the money's big, Haney also made a few $1,000,000. There comes a point where, what's the difference between 5 million and 6 million bucks?
But I do think it hurt Haney because the way he lost. He got wiped out. And Davis made short work of Garcia. So in the eyes of boxing fans, some boxing fans are saying, "What is this?" This guy that Gervonta Davis made short work of just wiped you out.
Yeah, I think Garcia put a lot of that spin on it too with his shenanigans.
Yeah,
I think Gervonta Davis has distinguished himself as the elite guy right now, and I think Haney, despite having an undefeated record and some good wins recently, is a guy that is a masterful weight cutter. So he comes in a lot bigger than many of his opponents have been. And other than that, what else is he masterful at? There's still a lot of people with a lot of questions. He's a good technical boxer, but he lost all his power in the bars in Mexico. He doesn't have any knockouts really at the pro level that are worth watching. And he out-techniques people, outpoints people, and doesn't threaten people with a knockout. So people felt Haney had a lot to prove. That's why Haney put his undefeated record up against this guy, because this guy is known for he earned the Gervonta Davis fight because there was question whether he might be able to beat him or not. He's good. Garcia is already paid more dues than Haney up until now. And what he did is he showed himself to have the mind game way above Haney's. Haney just took this like, I got to get ready, get in the ring, I got to win this fight. And Garcia took it to a whole new level, said, we're going to put the message out that I'm crazy. And let that take effect on the Haney camp over the course of 6 weeks. And then I'll take my chances in the ring, because I'm not crazy. And behind the scenes, I'm going to be preparing, getting advice from Floyd Mayweather, So he was watching his P's and Q's. He knew what he was doing. And I think Haney had to step up, show something, and he failed. But Haney was at the point where he's not on Gervonta Davis's level. If he wanted to be there, he was going to have to do something. So this was a risk. He took a risk, and he got.
Right, and I think as the guy who stepped up to agree to fight after his opponent missed weight, he didn't benefit at all. He got knocked down a few pegs.
Yeah, like I said, he went back and certainly sat with his group, and they certainly looked at it. And I'm not privy to the conversation. I don't know, exactly how it went. But after all that's been on social media from Ryan Garcia, a bombardment of stuff that he's crazy and that he's not taking his fight seriously, I think they knew that when he was serious, like for the Gervonta Davis fight before, that when he was serious, that he was a dangerous fighter and a threat. But Haney's at least good, he's at least good enough that he couldn't fathom that this guy was going to come in not 100%. And all the signs were this guy can't be 100%. He was kidnapped and drugged. If that happened, a month before the fight, you could still be physically not 100% back, still be a little lackadaisical, but still have taken a week off in the middle of your training camp recovering and stuff like that. The message Garcia sent about being unhinged had to affect Haney, and then the not wait, are we going to do this fight or are we going to be the ones that cancel it? No, well, let's do it because this just adds to the fact that our opponent's not ready and I'll beat him. So, yeah, he played into Garcia's hands, and $1.5 million is the benefit he got. He supposedly gets the purse and the fine, right? So, like I said, I think he'd trade that $1.5 million in for not having been shystered. You know what I mean? He's probably making a decent payday already. He's probably, at the point where he's probably got some money in the bank and stuff like that. So $1.5 million isn't what it is to a poor person anymore. I think he would leave it.
And I think he's kind of in a difficult spot now because the way he lost, if he fights somebody who's, like way beneath his level, people are going to be critical. They're going to want to see him come back and prove something. So he's probably going to have to fight somebody good.
Haney's now in the same position Garcia was in after the Gervonta Davis loss.
Yeah.
Garcia said, I got the Gervonta Davis loss. I'm going to beat this guy. I'm the best in the world. And Gervonta Davis said, no, you're not. Watch. And he showed everybody. Haney has always said he's the best. He'll beat this guy, beat that guy, and stuff like that. Now he's taking a loss. You don't want to lose 2 in a row when you're one of those guys. You can always explain away a loss for whatever reason. Even if it is, he got me in the mind game. That'll never happen again. But yeah, I think Haney's now in a situation where definitely his star is falling.
And he's still the champion, so he's probably going to have to fight somebody like Jaron Ennis or somebody like that who's really dangerous.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
If I were Haney, I would go out and have some type of improvement or stepping up the level of preparation, and I'd challenge Gervonta. Because if he should happen to beat Gervonta, which is a huge and tall order, but if he should happen to beat Gervonta, then that whole A, B, 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 Z, B, D, and now you've leveled it off so that the top 3 guys are pretty clearly defined in the division.
I think Garcia's going to try to get that fight. He'll always say he wants them to fight at a catch weight, but I don't think Davis would.
Davis has no reason to.
Davis say, you're coming down to me. I'm a smaller fighter. And
no, I don't fight without a belt on the line. Catch weights don't give belts.
Right.
So yeah, Gervonta is still in the driver's seat right now. And Gervonta, of all the guys that could be confident, should be confident that he's the best, he's the guy most suited for that. Haney's confidence, apparently, he thought he was the best, but he hadn't proven it. Gervonta did with the Garcia fight. So if Haney were to step up and be Gervonta's next challenge, that would at least show me that Haney's doing the right kind of thinking in terms of challenging himself and wanting to not fall from grace that much. Yeah, if he fights a guy that's a lesser echelon right now, just to start notching wins again, well, we've seen him already fight guys to just notch wins. It isn't good enough. So yeah, to me, just off the top of my head, Haney should be preparing to fight Gervonta Davis. He should make a lot of noise that that's the fight he wants. And if he should win that fight, like I said, now you've got the top. You got to do it in the ring.
Yeah.
I know that as a betting man or whatever, it'll probably be a wide advantage for Davis and things like that. But you got to do it in the ring. And Haney, like I said, Haney's got to change some stuff. And if he changes the right things, he's not so far out of the neighborhood. He's a talented, good boxer. He's not so far out of the neighborhood that there's no chance. But he has to take a risk in his next fight. I think you're right. I think to go back and fight a title defense against, number 8, nobody cares. Nobody wants to see that.
Yeah, and if he doesn't have the power to keep Davis off of him, he's going to be in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
He's going to be
that's where he has kind of a deficiency, is in the power, as you said.
he's going to be a lot bigger, a lot longer, and he's just got to figure out the right way to keep Davis away from him. And if he can't, by with a good stiff jab or whatever it is for 12 rounds, it's going to be a harder fight, or it could look like he's running the whole time. Right. Davis is the guy right now. That he's shown that. But like I said, you want, if Devin Haney wants to stay relevant, he should be preparing to fight Gervonta Davis. That would show people that this match, if not, this match broke him.
Or he could fight Ennis. Ennis is undefeated and a big knockout guy. He's under the same.
I understand that, but Ennis isn't the champion. Ennis isn't the guy that's under Floyd Mayweather's been on Floyd Mayweather's radar.
He's dangerous, very dangerous.
Right. And you don't want to, he's probably as dangerous to Haney in style wise as Gervonta. But the payoff to beating the necessary, what Haney needs is the payoff to beating a famous Gervonta Davis. He doesn't need to beat another guy that people are going to say, who?
Yeah. Boxing fans would know, but you're right, the public wouldn't.
Yeah, and he just crossed over into with Ryan Garcia. That brings a lot of my 13-year-old here in Costa Rica follows his social media, and I've seen video where the kid, they got a guy with a bag on his head and the body pad, and there's a girl kickboxer kind of throwing punches at his stomach, and the guy's like, okay, he's laughing at her and stuff, and Garcia, with the guy covers his face, Garcia comes out of the corner and lays into him with a couple of strong body shots, and then hides. They're doing, video clips and monetizing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
He's got Devin Haney. My kid's 13. He follows he likes boxing. He liked Ryan Garcia. He knew who Gervonta Davis was. He may not have known who Haney was until he fought Garcia. And there were probably a lot of people like that. Mm-hmm. Haney had a chance to win a crossover world audience, and he lost in the fight. So he'll get a lot less of that audience. What can he do to make it up? Go out and beat the best guy. That's, what I would do, what I would suggest he do. And if he says, I'm not sure, or I want to wait or whatever, that tells you all you need to know.
Yeah. And what do you think Garcia will do? He can basically fight anybody he wants.
Yeah. Garcia's been talking about moving up in weight. And, we'll see how all that goes for him. That move to 140 from 135. A lot of good boxers have done that move, and, on their way to welter and on their way to bigger paychecks and stuff. Terrence Crawford did it. Terrence Crawford's getting older at this point. If Garcia were the first to move up and take that step, Gervonta may not, because he's not a huge guy. That could help separate him, get him out of that mix of that guy. I don't know if he wants to, that scenario I drew of the 3 guys separating themselves at lightweight and fighting it out. That benefits us, That's Duran and Hearns and Hagler and Sugar Ray and stuff with a group of people, hashing it out in the ring with multiple fights. Garcia may not want to do that. He may want to move up and start to be dominant at 140 and leave it at there. Garcia versus, some of those guys at 140 are tough fighters. He could go up there and have some good fights and establish himself and win a world championship there. And we'll see how it goes. So, yeah, Garcia gets to call his own shots again.
I try to maybe do one fight and then fight Errol Spence. Spence took a pretty good hammering from Crawford. maybe that's the right time to go after him for Garcia.
I'll tell you, I wouldn't do that. I think
wouldn't?
Spence
Still
is
has enough.
dangerous. Spence is, the fact is Spence is huge for the weight class he's in. And you're going to be coming up. And you've got the recent example, and I'm going to have to look it up, but you've got the recent example of a lightweight overstepping his bounds, moving up into the welterweight division, and he got creamed. And he was also a fantastic, undefeated lightweight. Also happened to be named Garcia, and that was Mikey Garcia.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to look up what he did. Was it he who moved up to fight Errol Spence? Was it Errol Spence that actually beat him? It was Errol Spence. Okay, yeah. So Errol Spence is not to be. Crawford, I think, is the best boxer we've seen probably in the last 30, 40 years. Better than Mayweather. That's in my opinion. But I think if people don't put him in that neighborhood, or you want to just drink the Kool-Aid that say Mayweather's the best, nobody can touch him, just look at what Crawford does to people. Look at what Crawford does and the way he switches from lefty to righty seamlessly within rounds and things like that. Crawford is a special boxer. The only other guy in the Mayweather conversation in the last 30 years, people say Pacquiao and stuff. Those are flavors. If you like Pacquiao's style, you might consider him and stuff like that. But I think three guys in the last few years, 30 years, and say in this century, have defined themselves: Mayweather, Andre Ward, and Crawford. Crawford's a special boxer, and because he's kind of mild-mannered, quiet, not a huge social media guy, people are missing it. But I think Crawford's super special. So losing to him on Spence's part is no shame. And Spence put an end to Mikey Garcia's dream of moving up very, very, definitively. So I'm looking at it right now. He beat Mikey Garcia, was undefeated moving up to fight Errol Spence. He was considered to be one of the best boxers coming up from there, and his camp and his family and this, and he had taken off time to do this move, and they're very. It was a plan that they were enacting and everything like that. They called out Spence like they knew something and stuff like that, and that fight went 120, 107, 120, 108, 120, 108. Errol Spence wiped him out. And I don't know that, it would be interesting, a prime Mikey Garcia versus a prime Ryan Garcia. I take Mikey.
But a lot of people are asking, Spence post-car wreck, what does he have? Because he fought Crawford after, and so people there are some questions there. Maybe that's, so I'm not saying he should go after him right away. Yeah, no, we haven't seen Spence fight since Crawford, right? He hasn't had a fight since then.
The thing about Spence is the guy that paid a lot of dues. He came through the amateur systems and things like that. And the Crawford fight signified a payday and a chance to break into being that elite guy that Crawford is now. And he failed at it. So I don't think Spence needs to be a stepping stone he already did. I'm going to put an end to this lightweight's dream with Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia was a good enough lightweight that people, if like I said, fantasy matchup, prime Mikey Garcia against a prime Ryan Garcia, I wonder what would happen. It would be very interesting. I think Mikey would probably be favored in that fight. Not sure, but just my hunch. And like I said, I just read you the cards for what Spence did to him. Yeah, there's a car accident, so that means that the risk Mikey took in taking the Errol Spence fight isn't even the same risk for Ryan to take that fight. Ryan should call somebody else out. Ryan could have a hard time with guys like, I know he's burnt out at this point. Regis Prograis. There are a couple of good British that are going to escape my mind. Good British 140 pounders that could wreck his day if he doesn't prepare well for the fight. You've seen when the British guys are motivated and ready for a fight and a payday and stuff like that, they'll give Garcia his money. He'll have to go over to England to fight them. There are a lot of challenges without having to pick on, a post-accident Errol Spence, and also presents a risk. Errol Spence is a guy that could fight Canelo size-wise, and Ryan Garcia is a lightweight. Don't mess where you shouldn't be messing. You know what I mean? If he wants to move up to welterweight, I think he should do it at his own time and take a good, like Crawford did. Crawford cleaned out the 140-pound division before moving up. You know, let his body grow. Garcia's still a young guy. Let his body mature and things like that. And then you get into the welterweight division. And by then, Crawford will be, retired. Spence will be gone. And there'll be a new crop of guys that you've come up with and you've come up with seeing. So, yeah, Spence would be maybe a flashy show fight, but there's no benefit for Spence to do that fight unless they're going to throw the boatload of money at him. So I'm not interested in that one. But I think if Garcia goes up and does it right, he could be very interesting at 140.
Yeah. Well, it's great discussing this topic with you. And, as always, we'd like to let you talk about what you're doing with the dog rescue at the end of these shows.
Oh, I appreciate it. Well, when I started with the dog rescue, I started watching two pit bulls that had to be kept isolated from the rest of the dog population. So they rented a separate house for them, and they've been there living. And there's been a fellow from Germany that's been living here in Costa Rica for 6 months. There's a few blocks from my house that's been living here for 6 months, and he's took over watching them. So I hadn't bought up Zafira and Gato in a long time. Well, our friend from Germany is leaving, so it looks like they're going to fall back into at least being watched by me for a little while. So until some other arrangement can be made, I can't take them to my house because they'll kill my dogs. But yeah, I'm going to have daily duties of going to watch Zafir and Gato, and they're great dogs. They suffered, life long on a chain. They're now, big mature dogs. But when we got them, when Ashley got them, they were, on death's door in terms of starvation and things like that. So they deserve a good chance to live. It's a shame this guy's leaving because he was able to give them attention and stuff like that. And they're big enough, I think, either a very experienced woman or it should be a man that takes care of them because of their size and strength and stuff. So we'll see. I'll get you some pictures and things like that of those two. And you can see how they're coming along. Supposedly they're a little more social and things like that, but that the money hasn't been there for professional training and things like that. The dog daddies and what's the name of the Latino guy that was a dog trainer on TV?
Cesar Millan.
Yeah, like guys like that don't exist here in Costa Rica. You've got dog trainers and things like that, but they're not at the high level that can handle really problematic dogs. So, those dogs are probably facing a lifetime of being in the shelter and not getting adopted. And, we don't put them down. Obviously we're going to let them live their lives out. So they become a maintenance job, and that's where we are.
All right. So as always, we appreciate your support. Feel free to subscribe, share this podcast with people if you enjoy watching all of these. Feel free to comment. Myself and Miguel respond to all these comments. And check out Miguel's channel, MMA Collector 74. He's doing a lot of incredible history stuff lately. He's been really jamming out a lot of stuff. Just one after another.
Yeah, we've been looking at old classic fights. Todd's been joining me on that segment as well as other special guests. And we got a lot planned in the works there. So it's definitely worth your watching if you're an MMA head. And if you're just a boxing head, I always love to dabble in boxing. I spent a long time concentrating on boxing, almost a decade there with the boxing channel and the Sweet Science websites that are now defunct. But it's always close to my heart. So anytime Todd wants to dabble in boxing, I'm game.
Yeah. And like I said, the channel is the MMA Collector 74. And be sure to check that out and subscribe to it. And as always, we appreciate your support. Until next episode, take care.
Live to Fight is the type of company that Dana killed. It's a homegrown, it's a guy that just does good work and, puts it out there. And if you can support him, you really should, because he's precisely a guy who can't, his banners may not be able to hang on to UFC because he hasn't been able to pay them $100,000 to get his stuff out there. That's the corporate stuff that we're talking about now with the UFC, that, they've made everything at that level where it's all about money for them. And Live to Fight is a dude that does good work, makes you a great banner, and, doesn't have $100,000 to get on the UFC and stuff, and deserves support. So any fighter out there, anybody out there, owner of a gym or anything like that that listens to us, God bless you and thank you very much for your support. And extend that to Live to Fight, because he's one of us. Those guys are one of us.